Relationships are hard.
Well, they wouldn't be that hard if you would just listen.
Me listen or you listen?
The sky turns gray against a fiery display of red and golden hues, like the day I fell for you. We'll dive into a reverie. Oh, don't you wanna get cozy? We'll sail across an ocean of sheets.
Welcome to CSI,
Courtship
Spirituality.
and Intimacy.
My name is Wale Ade,
I am Candace Oglesby.
and today we're going to talk about listening in relationships.
But before we do, please like
Subscribe
or comment.
on our post. Just if you want to add to the conversation, your family, we want to hear from you, just go ahead and do that. And while you're down there, just look at the link in the description. We have some great merchandise for you, whether it's t-shirts, hoodies, mugs. It will really support the channel, and we would appreciate it a lot. So now that we got that out the way, let's talk about listening in relationships. Do you listen well, Candace?
Do I listen well?
I mean, it's just a question.
I think it is in our human nature that I think most of us struggle with listening, especially in relationships.
Well, I kind of think I'm a great listener. Wouldn't you say so?
Some work improvement, most definitely.
And so if you're like sometimes we struggle with hearing and listening to our partner. And so we want to give you some tips that have helped us in order to listen better, especially when we're getting in rough areas of communication. And so what's one of the ways that you would suggest that we could improve our listening in a relationship?
Well, I think when we talk about listening, I think that, and that I feel like we've shared this on our podcast before, but this idea about being able to listen to receive instead of respond. So you'll probably hear me say that over and over and over again, because most of the time, right, when people are in disagreements and it requires for us to listen, that usually people are listening because they are ready to respond. They don't feel like they need to receive in any sort of way. And so definitely making sure that you try to listen without the expectation of, well, I'm going to be sitting here ready to make my next point, but really trying to listen to the person and hear what they have to say. I know that sometimes that can be difficult. I know that that's something that I struggle with myself, because it's like, oh, if I could just interject this one thing, or if I can just say this one thing, then I can just be able to get my point across. But in relationships, it's not about getting a point across. It's about trying to be healthy and have a safe and healthy repair.
Yeah, and I would have to agree. Like that's places where I struggle as well. I mean, because sometimes it's like when you hear something and it's like, oh, I can prove that point wrong. You get stuck on that point. You're just waiting for them to like finish what they're saying. Like all the other stuff doesn't matter right now because that was wrong, and I'm gonna make sure I correct that and win this argument. But whenever you go out seeking to win an argument, you usually lose in the long run. And so just make sure that you are listening to hear the other person, not listening to respond. And so I love the way that you put that. Another thing that I would suggest to the people is that listen to the emotion behind the words, right? And speak to that. Sometimes we get thrown off by the words, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, somebody cursing you out or somebody calling you all types of names. They just want to sit there and be like, they must be mad, right? No, we're not saying that. But honestly, you can kind of sometimes see and hear whether it's hurt, whether it's, some sort of pain, whether it's some sort of, sadness or anger, and something as simple as just talking to that instead of, trying to prove your point. You could just be like, hey, babe, you sound like you're really upset right now. And, I really want to know what's going on with you. Can you explain more about that or tell me more about that? Something, make sure you touch her on her knee, right? You look her on the eye, do something because, physical communication is just as important, or nonverbal communication is just as important as verbal communication, if not more, right? And so just let them know that you lovingly, they're here. But talk to that emotion, because when you start speaking to the emotion, you start to see people's defenses come down. You start to see that, they're really interested in how you feel. And it just kind of changes the dynamic of the conversation. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely think that physical touch can soften a charged environment and a charged reaction. And so I certainly think being able to offer physical touch can be helpful. And I think just also too, right, if someone you see is physically upset, like it's okay to say like, hey, do we need a timeout for a second? And then maybe we can come back and have the conversation later. And so giving ourselves as adults timeouts is okay to do because sometimes we need to take a second just to chill out, check in, see what's going on with us, and then be able to come back so that emotion is not so raw.
And notice she said, give yourself a timeout, not the other person, right? So we don't want you out here giving people timeouts like it's your child. Right. You need to go and reflect on that real quick. Don't do all that. Give yourself a timeout and communicate that. So I need some time to gather myself. We can come back in a little bit, but just give me some time to kind of process. And so that was definitely a good form of listening. And so another point that I want to bring up is that when you are trying to listen to your partner, make sure that you're listening with empathy and compassion. And I know you always talk about this, Candace. Number one, I'm not the most empathetic at times, or I would say maybe not. I'm probably empathetic. I'm just not compassionate, right? Or it doesn't come off. And so, yeah. So I think, that's one of the things you have to remember, that this is the partner that you love. And remember, it has to be a foundation of love there, right? So I'm not talking to people that hate each other, right?
Right. Just screwing each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. But I'm talking about the people that actually have a foundation of love. And that's where you got to build from. This is the partner who I'm dearly love. And so I want to, handle them with care, love and compassion. And always remember that, they're not out there trying to harm you intentionally, right? Hopefully, if we're starting at a foundation of love, they're not trying to intentionally harm you. So therefore, I can have some empathy and compassion to them. And so what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that being able to extend empathy and being able to show up compassionately is important within a relationship because we're not going to always see things right from the person's perspective, right? Our thoughts may not be their thoughts, but I think if we're able to extend empathy, it's like, okay, let me see what it might feel like to try to put myself in this person's shoes, especially my partner, whatever it is that they're experiencing, but also to being able to extend love and compassion. And again, right, you're not going to always agree. There are going to be times where you're going to be in total disagreement from each other. But I think in order to extend that mutual respect and being able just to, let that person know, like, we may not agree, but I'm still here. I'm still rocking with you. I still love you. And so I'm going to show up in an empathic and compassionate way.
Yeah, I think that's just the way, it takes down a lot of, the defense mechanisms. Yeah. So it just helps, bring things to a level ground so that you can have better communication. But the last thing that we want to bring up today is that one of the things that we want to make sure is that when we're listening, sometimes you just have to shut up. Right. And so as we were talking kind of about before, there's things that are going through your head. You want to say this, you want to say that. But, sometimes you just have to tell your brain to shut up, and listen, right? Literally put your stuff down, breathe, and just hear what your partner is saying, right? Because especially if they may be charged, or especially if there's, you can tell that they're really hurt by something just by the way that they're acting, slow yourself down. And I think there shouldn't just be one person doing it all the time, right? Or the other person doing it all the time, because then it can get out of hand. Mm-hmm. But both of you kind of need to practice, like, all right, I feel that charge, so I'm not as charged as she is, or she's not as charged as I am. So let me shut up and kind of hear what they have to say.
Yeah, I like a softer phrase than shut up. Pause, right? Pause is always good. If we can pause, take a moment and just breathe, and then it's like, okay, after I take that breath, let me say what I need to say. I think pause really helps people to slow down. I know that, as human beings, we're quick, and that can also show up in our relationships, how we feel like we need to respond and have a response, and not everything requires a response. And so if we could just learn to just pause and AKA shut up, and I think that might be beneficial, to slowing down the trajectory of, some of that anger and that irritation that comes in when we don't necessarily agree with each other. So
yeah, and I think, that actually ties into the fact that, like, when you pause or shut up, right? You have to kind of understand when the other person's talking, like, what's going on with you, right? You have to be in tune with your feelings, because if you're not in tune with what's going on with you, you're going to be ready to jump and defend and fight and attack and do all that other stuff. And so sometimes it is good to pause, right? Shut up, listen, understand what's going on with yourself before you respond, because that one word that you say can turn that conversation. I know I'm the king of one word roadblocks, right? So we might be communicating and I say one little smart thing, because I have some tendencies in me, right? And so it throws off. And I'm talking about, fellas, you do not want to, have to go through, the long periods of conflict, just because of that one word. So it's better to take some time, right? Pause and make sure you choose your words wisely. And so I was just thinking, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, just be receptive. This takes practice. So I know we're kind of like just throwing these things at you as if, right, we were able to attain them overnight. No. So I remember after one podcast, I think we taped, it was on communication, and we were not communicating the best after that. So we say that to say that this stuff takes practice. It takes time, and give yourself some grace and some patience to be able to continue to learn each other, because that's part of what communication helps us to do, is to really help us learn our partners. So
right. So relationships are hard, but they can be easier if we practice how to listen to each other. And we're doing this because we want to see relationships grow and flourish, and, just healthy relationships. And I'm just going to say, I like healthy Black relationships. What about you? And so therefore, healthy Black. As we're practicing this, we're just sharing with you, and we want you to practice it as well. So once again, my name is Wale Ade.
I'm Candace Oglesby.
And this has been another episode of CSI,
Courtship,
Spirituality,
and Intimacy.
And we'll see you guys again soon. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you haven't already, please like,
comment,
and subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell just in case, so you can get every update whenever a video drops. Once again, if you want this merch,
please click below.
Go ahead and look below in the description so that you can support this channel. We're glad that you came, and we hope to see you on the next video. And if you missed our last video on communication, you can catch it right here. So go ahead and click and see how you can improve your communication in your relationship. Have a great day.
Maybe I can make you mine. Make you mine.